I'm Jane Ferguson. I've been working as a journalist in the Middle East for almost 10 years now, 8 years in TV. Based here in Beirut, Lebanon, I'm a foreign correspondent for PBS NewsHour and regularly travel to hotspots in the Middle East and beyond for the show. My work mostly focuses on conflict in the region, and since last year, the Pulitzer Centre has been collaborating with me to work on in-depth TV series about certain conflicts. The Pulitzer Centre's support, coupled with the NewsHour's style and substance, has allowed me to bring nuance and context to complex stories. That's a rare luxury in TV news, to dig deep into topics and bring much more information to the viewers. Last year, I worked in collaboration with the Pulitzer Centre on a series from Iraq ahead of the planned offensive against ISIS in Mosul and the surrounding areas. I traveled with my cameraman producer all over, from Baghdad to Erbil and Fallujah. We reported predominantly on the coalition of various fighting forces inside Iraq that would unite to push ISIS out of the country. That's a really important story because those groups, from Iran-backed Shia militias to Kurdish Peshmerga fighters to Iraqi army troops, represent the future of Iraq. How the battle for Mosul plays out and what Iraq will look like after ISIS have gone will have huge repercussions for the rest of the region, not least of all the 5,000 US troops inside the country trying to get them to all work together. Some Iraqis fear there will be another sectarian war after ISIS are defeated. If that happens, it's likely to be as a direct result of the divisions between the various fighting forces strengthened by taking part in the battle for Mosul. We looked into the US's involvement in trying to provide support and assistance and spend time with the other players, including the Shia Badr brigades and the Peshmerga forces already holding the line against ISIS in Kurdistan. Their voices are going to be very important in Iraq's future, and bringing their perspective to an American audience is vital if we're going to understand the complexities of Iraq. Last month, I traveled to South Sudan to cover its complicated conflict and humanitarian disaster in collaboration with the Pulitzer Centre for the NewsHour. Both sides in that conflict, from the government's main army to the rebels, have committed horrific war crimes. At the moment, with rebels on the back foot and government troops conducting what they call counterinsurgency measures, most of the reports of violence targeting civilians are accusing government soldiers of widespread killings and abuses. Civilians are targeted by government troops for being of the same tribe as rebels, or tribes seen as sympathetic to the rebels. That causes huge amounts of people to flee their homes without anything but the clothes they are wearing and their children. Many in Unity State ran into the massive swamps there to hide from the soldiers and died of hunger. They didn't have any way of feeding themselves in the swamps. We cannot know how many people realistically have died. The UN declared it a famine in February. Everyone we spoke to had been hiding in the swamps. They told us the horrific tales of family members dying of hunger there and people who just couldn't keep walking, trying to get to safer rebel areas without any food. It's incredibly important to go to the swamps and to talk to the people directly affected who are living this nightmare, because the world needs to know what conflict is driving today, and that's famine. This is a man-made disaster, and the solution needs to be an end to the war that's caused it. It's also important to show those who are violating human rights so grossly that they cannot do it in the shadows. As journalists, we should be able to shed some light on the real reason people are going hungry and make sure viewers know what's going on and can hear the voices of the victims of the conflict of South Sudan.